What's going on, all you degenerate watch addicts? Today I'm showing off the newly released Seiko Alpinist GMT. This one is the limited edition SPB409. Based on the pictures alone that you can find online, you're going to think that this is a white dial, but now that I have it in person, I can clearly see that it is a silver dial with sort of like a sun ray effect, and that's actually preferred for me. I am starting to become a fan of white dials, but in this case, the silver effect and how it reflects light and all that stuff, it just looks really clean and professional. And I think clean and professional are probably the two best adjectives to describe this watch. I think it's really well done. Immediately what caught my attention with this version was the silver tone steel bezel here with the markings there. I just really like that style. I like the way that Seiko executed it, and in person it looks just as good as I thought. I'm not going to go over any technical details anymore because all of that stuff you can find online if you really want to know. The things that I do want to cover are some of the intangibles, just, my personal opinion, how does the action feel, and then I will cover dimensions because dimensions are never accurate online. So I like to do those myself and just let you know what I get, and then you can compare, what it says on the website versus what I'm getting. And so I will have those dimensions for you on the screen right now. Off of my own personal experience wearing this watch, the two things that I noticed off of the dimensions are that it's a little chunky, right? It's a little bit fat. Not necessarily a bad thing. It's just something I noticed. Of all the things that I would change, the thickness would be the one thing that I would reduce. And then the weight when compared to other watches that I'm used to that are slightly lighter. So I'm not saying that the weight is a bad thing. I'm just saying it's something I noticed on the wrist. It was a little bit heavier than what I'm used to. But yeah, really going back to what I would change, it would be the thickness. But again, that's not a bad thing. Like it's just something that I personally, if I had to change one thing, that's what it would be. And I'm sure somewhere in the background, I'm showing you B-roll of some wrist shots and all that stuff. But on the wrist, I think it's a great thing to look at, and it's just a great watch to wear. One thing that Seiko always does really well is how much charm and charisma they inject into their watches. I'm not going to be the one to tell you that Seiko is the king when it comes to quality, but I will say that they definitely are up there, in the top 3 when it comes to that charm, that fit and finish. It's this X factor that Seikos have. And again, I am a fanboy, so I'm not going to try and convince you that objectively these are the best watches. But for me personally, in my experience with all the watches I've had, Seikos are just so goddamn juicy with that X factor, and I don't even know how to explain it. I'm just letting you know that it's there for me. But with that being said, there is an objective quality to this watch. You've got a mixture of brushed finishes and little touches of mirror polish that really make this watch shine. One thing I hate is a watch that has too much mirror polish, and that is not the case here. So you've got some on the sides, but this is not something you see head on, right? So from slight angles, you're going to be able to see it. So to me, it's just the perfect combination of these little highlights of mirror polish and then the overall brushed finishing from the bezel and the lugs. It looks super professional. In the real world where I work at, I am in a very tech-heavy job. I'm always surrounded by designers and engineers, and I'm kind of LARPing here a little bit, but I always felt like this watch just felt at home in that environment. Something about the silver tone dial, and then, I don't know, the dual crowns. It just kind of looks like a tech-heavy watch, and it's just one of those watches that does a great job of, I don't know, like increasing the magic or whatever you want to call it, whatever cliche, cheesy phrase about being a watch enthusiast you want to use here. Like that's what I feel about the Alpinist. And there's also a lot of subtle beauty here. Let's start looking at the caseback. So the caseback, there's nothing really special here. If you're used to other Seiko watches with the 6R movement, you're going to know what this looks like. But to that end, just because it's something you've seen before doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. You know, don't fix something that's not broken. And here they're just continuing on a style of design that I feel always worked. I like the Tokyo lines on the rotor, and I just feel like the simplistic elegance of the display here, or whatever you want to call it, has always worked. And in this case, I continue to enjoy that experience. Now going over the actions. So you've got these two crowns. This bottom crown here at the 4 o'clock is your inner rotating bezel crown. So this is what you use to turn the crown, and hopefully you can see the crown moving. Or I'm sorry, not the crown. Hopefully you can see the inner bezel moving. And this is what you're going to use to set your reference point for any direction, you know, your compass heading and all that stuff. The action is good, right? Nothing here feels sloppy. However, there is no real resistance or friction here. So if you brush up against anything, if you know your cuff snags on this, it will move. Not like it's not going to be freely swinging or anything, but I guess whenever you set your inner bezel, just don't expect it to be there indefinitely. You know, there's no locking mechanism or anything. It's just a freely rotating crown. And then moving up to the actual crown, here the action is solid. The threading is tight. Nothing here feels sloppy. And then when you're winding the crown or you're winding the mainspring, it all feels deliberate. One thing I hate about watches is when the crown is just wobbly and you don't feel like you're directly attached to the movement, but that is absolutely not the case here. And then screwing it back in is also an easy thing to do. You don't have to struggle to find the threading, and it's just a smooth experience overall. I wasn't going to show off the bracelet just because there's really nothing special about it, but just now in real time I made an executive decision to at least just give you a quick preview of it. So let's go ahead and remove it from the box. That's what I always do. I always remove the OEM bracelet and then put it straight back in the box. But here you go. 3-link oyster style bracelet. If you have a Seiko watch or a 6R Seiko watch, then this is, you know, you already know what you're getting into. Very standard Seiko affair. But actually, I guess I can show you the leather strap. So yeah, this is a really cool touch from Seiko. Granted, at the price that you're paying, this is the least they can do. But they do give you a leather strap. I am not a fan of leather straps just because I think wrist sweat and leather is disgusting. But with that said, it's undeniable that there is a huge fan base for leather straps, and you know, it's just a nice touch that they provided for you. And let's go ahead and put this back. I think price is going to be the biggest point of contention here, just how it always is. That's like the never-ending debate. Value is so subjective, it's so opinionated, and everybody's got their different definitions and whatever. So the Alpinist GMT, at least this model, the MSRP is $1,300. I personally bought mine from Arizona Fine Time. I am not sponsored by them. They have this great little option where you can give an offer. So I offered $1,100 instead, and they accepted. So I got this GMT for $1,100. I think that's okay, right? I'll always take a cheaper price. You know, the argument of price is stupid because I'm always going to want it to be cheaper. But there are things that you just can't change, right? Things cost what they cost, and if you don't like that cost, then don't buy it. So, you know, here I'm not going to try and defend it. I'm not going to try and advertise it. I'm just going to say that I liked this watch enough to pay that amount. And if you, as an individual, are comfortable in that price range, then all I can say from my own personal experience is that I enjoy this watch, right? I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I think the GMT functionality, the overall fit and finish, the way that it reflects light, the way that it feels on my wrist, I think that it feels every bit of that $1,100 that I paid. And even if it is overpriced, I still enjoy the experience. And that's all I'm going to say about that. And that's pretty much all I have to say. I'm sure throughout, my rambling, I was showing off different B-rolls and different angles of light. And that's really all I want to do in my videos from now on. That's something I'm going to change. I don't really care to go off on the technical details because, again, that's stuff you can find online. So that's it. I'm going to stop my rambling now. I'm going to enjoy some other watches today. And I will continue to take wrist shots like a crack addict. So have a good one, guys. I'll see you guys later. Bye.